Hello, welcome to another English Sparkling with Tweedy video, and back to the sparkling now. I think I'm done with that run of still wines. I know there were 3 or 4 or even 5 in a row there with just one sparkling in the middle, but back on brand now. Another wine from Wiston. And this one is a bit special. This is their first ever vintage, 2009, that they have relatively recently either released or possibly re-released as what they call a sort of library cuvée, a library wine, something like that. I think they sold a wine closer to 2009 after that first release. I'm not sure, I can't remember now. Anyway, 2009, this has had an incredible 13 years on the lees. I think it wasn't disgorged until late 2023. The English sparkling wine standard has a minimum of, might even be as little as 9 months. It's quite a short period that you have to in order to be able to adhere to the PDO and the PGI. This is way in excess of that by an order of magnitude. And this is one of the oldest wines I will have ever tasted on this channel. Really pleased that they have released this. It's great to have something like this available because they're not always easy to come by. These kind of seriously aged English sparklings. There isn't a huge amount of technical information on the website, but it does have the grape breakdown. Maybe that's on the back of the bottle as well. 60% Chardonnay, 30% Pinot Noir, and the remaining 10% Pinot Meunier. So it's very much a Chardonnay dominant blend, about a 60-40 split between the Chardonnay and the Pinot. And they also note that it did not undergo malolactic fermentation. I was a bit unsure with that envy from Wiston the other day, whether it had or not. I couldn't quite decide. I think it might have been partial, I'm not sure. But I believe this was the traditional classic house style of Wiston to not do malolactic fermentation, and so you get these really kind of bold acidic wines. A lot of green apple zing to them. So is that enough babble? I'll get on and open this. Try and get some more vines in the background rather than just seeing the mess in my garden. Relatively deep gold, isn't it? Very fine bubbles there, really metallic. You know, we say gold in a lazy way to mean something sort of a vague colour of yellow. That really does look golden, it's shiny. Without giving this a swirl or anything, the first thing I'm met with on the nose is a lovely creaminess that I think is also something bready. Like choux pastry or something, actually, more like it's something autolytic plus possibly some Chardonnay expression, but a lovely kind of choux bun, profiterole, something like that without the chocolate. Actually, maybe there is a hint of something like white chocolate there. Cream bun, choux pastry, profiterole, elephant's feet, do we call those? Croquembouche, something like that, that kind of thing. Yeah, choux pastry and cream. Lovely, very refined. Not immediately any fruit jumping out at me there, but I think there is a sort of soft suggestion of apple there, maybe. But mostly I'm getting a lovely, very, very rich sort of autolytic kind of character. Creamy and pastry-ish, bready sort of thing. See if some fruit emerges with a bit of a swirl. Little hint of maybe even toffee apples, little hint of something like candied lemon. A lot of sweet aromas coming out of this, and yet I think I forgot to say in the blurb about the technical information at the start that the dosage level here is really quite low. It's 8 grams a litre, which again is another house style of Wiston. They tend to be relatively low dosage. Yet lots of those notes on the nose there suggest something sweet to follow. Something like candied lemon, not exactly toffee apple, but something like a sort of sweetened version of apple. A little bit of a hint of some kind of dried fruit there as well, maybe. Very luxurious sort of a nose. Right, give this a sip. There definitely is acidity there, but I think that very long aging has probably tamed it a bit. The first word that comes to mind is crisp rather than overwhelming zing. Lovely and crisp. Very pleasant effervescence there. Really nice mouthfeel to that. Very tiny bubbles. It's a delight to roll over the tongue. And then fruit-wise, Again, I think I'm probably thinking of apples here. There might be a little bit of stone fruit in amongst that. Sort of thinking in the more kind of sweet pastry slash baked pudding sort of area for the particular way that the apple expresses. It does have a slight hint of baked apple, possibly even a dusting of brown sugar thereon. And again, this is really quite low dosage. It's 8 grams a litre. It's right at the lower end of brut, or towards the lower end of brut, below the halfway point at least. There's definitely some minerality there, almost a hint of salinity, I would say, a slight saltiness to that. And paradoxically, having talked about sweet baked apples, desserts, pastry and all of that, sweet pastry, there is actually a kind of savoury character to it on the palate, the kind of complexity, a sort of umami-ish savoury complexity that it has acquired as a result of that obscene duration of lees aging, 13 years. Now I'm getting some citrusy notes, some lemoniness on the palate. Lemoniness? Doesn't sound like a word. Some lemon character on the palate. Again, slight hint of, I don't know, candied or possibly preserved lemons. I think preserved lemons was something I thought I found in the non-vintage version the other day. A slight sensation of cream soda, which doesn't sound complimentary, does it? A sort of mass-produced fizzy drink. Is that flavoured with vanilla, synthetic vanilla? I think there might be a tiny hint of vanilla in amongst all of that other sweet pastry and dessert I've been talking about. Yeah, a bit of a sensation of something like cream soda. And yet for all of those mentions of sweet things, it is overall really quite dry. And as I say, even slightly mineral, slightly saline, slightly savoury. There's quite a lot going on there. I think this is what we talk about when we talk about complexity, isn't it? It's pushing lots of buttons in my palate, my probably not particularly very functional palate, because I'm still getting over a cold at the moment, but I can also smell that lovely autolytic character, little hints of fruit, the sweetness, the baked products and all that. I think that's lovely. Very sophisticated. What I'm surprised about it is that it certainly hasn't gone flabby and flat. There is still acidity there. In any other sparkling wine region, they'd be very happy with this level of acidity. In a champagne, this would be probably celebrated for its acidity. But by English standards and by the standards of Wiston particularly, where, as I say, I believe traditionally their house style was to not do malolactic fermentation, to keep all that malic green apple zing, this actually feels relatively mild on the acidity. And I think that probably suits this more sort of refined, more classy style. If it was doing all of those things and it had this kind of really extreme attention-grabbing green apple zing, then that might not have balanced so well with all those other nuances. So perhaps it's good that it's all kind of melding together like that and calming down. Nice. I am enjoying that, despite having a bit of a cold. Does seem to be a step up in terms of complexity, I think, and sophistication over the NV, which was good as well. I'll put the price on screen, and being a 2009 vintage, you know, it is a bit of a special thing, their first inaugural vintage. But I think, you know, considering the rarity of vintages of this sort of age in England, and that this obviously is something quite significant for this particular winery and vineyard, I think they've been relatively restrained with the pricing. I know other producers in England who would really have, you know, tried to put a fast one in terms of the pricing of a wine like this. I actually think, you know, comparatively, that is a good price for the quality of. This would happily hold its head up high in a selection of pretty high-end vintage champagne, for example, I think. Very good. Cheers.